Power Project crew, welcome to today's show. This episode was recorded on April 13th with one of our old school homies, Charles Brooke. Charles used to lift with Mark back in the day at one of the previous iterations of the Super Training Gym. And he joined us today because he is, the best way I can put this is he is a professional smart guy. He does tons of experiments with meat processing. He knows the ins and outs of literally everything, as you guys will soon find out. You might want a notepad because there's some really big terms that are being used by Charles. But we asked him a bunch of weird questions like how long can you store meat? Is the quote like manager special date, the use by, is that really important? Is that just like a guideline? We asked him about, raw milk, all kinds of good stuff. And we also talked about the coronavirus and whether or not that's going to impact our food supply and his thoughts just in whole about the whole COVID-19. So overall, a very informative episode. Once Charles was off air, we started chit-chatting amongst ourselves, started talking about workouts right now. Mark's, his Carnivore 100, and Nsima and him seem to be doing a lot more cardio since, you don't really need any gym equipment to go outside and run. And I spoke about the lockdown from an introvert's point of view and how there's some things that we really, really need to be concerned about if you are more of a introvert type of person. I really hope you guys understand where I'm coming from. Real quick, thank you to Piedmontese for sponsoring this episode. We talked a lot about meat, and hopefully it doesn't deter you guys from wanting to eat more meat, because we did talk a little bit about like food poisoning and some of the nastiness of that. However, the absolute best way to get the best meat is just to have it delivered straight to your door, and that's what Certified Piedmontese does. In a previous episode with Dr. Drew, I apologize if you guys heard my dogs going nuts, but somebody was at the door and it was actually the delivery guy dropping off a brand new package of Certified Piedmontese beef. So I'm really excited for that because my birthday's coming up and I'm going to cook up a tomahawk ribeye on my smoker. It's going to be awesome. Really excited for that. So thank you, Piedmontese, for that. And if you guys were following my cut at the end of last year, I really, really leaned on Certified Piedmontese beef. It has higher protein, less fat, cooks faster, and it just flat out tastes better than anything ever. It is that damn good. Please head over to Piedmontese.com. That's Piedmontese.com. At checkout, enter promo code Power Project for 25% off your order. And if your order is $99 or more, you get free 2-day shipping. Please check out the Jacked and Tan box and the Power Project Deluxe bundle. I highly recommend both. You will not be disappointed in either one of them, but really you won't be disappointed with anything on the entire website. Again, links in the YouTube description and iTunes show notes. Please check that out. And lastly, Mark Bell is still giving away a free 30-day trial of markbell.com. Markbell.com is where Mark posts his daily workouts every single day. You gain access to that for absolutely nothing right now. Markbell.com, that's where it is. Markbellslingshot.com, 20% off any slingshot and hip circle combo. Again, that's any slingshot of your choice, any hip circle of your choice. Throw that in your cart. At checkout, you're going to receive 20% off. Thank you for checking out this episode. If you guys like what you're hearing, please reach out to us at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram. Let us know what you guys think. And for now, enjoy the show. Mark, what's the best way to describe Charles to Nsima? I was trying to. I'm like, he's really smart. Works at UC Davis, I think, with like cows and shit like that. Something like that.
He's he'll explain it to us better than what I can explain, but he's a microbiologist basically. And the cool thing is he's gotten into so many different lines of work. Mm-hmm. So, he knows everything from, how cows digest grass from beginning to end, all the way through to, he'll speak a lot today. One of the reasons why we have him on today is because, he is one of the few people that I know who's physically talked to like the FDA about our food supply. And, for a little bit there, people were going a little crazy with their shopping. And I think maybe people are still pretty scared, and he'll be able to give us better answers and more information on, what we can expect from our food supply if things continue the way that they continue and things like that. But yeah, in addition to that, he's a good friend. He's also a strongman competitor. That's cool. And so like I always am fascinated by the people that are out there doing and participating in everything, like they're participating in all lines of anything that can get you better, they're participating in. And I love that. That's why we have guys on here like Daniel Arago, who, is not only studying this stuff nonstop, but he's also lifting. He's in there training with Mike O'Hearn at 4 a.m. and stuff like that. And I place a great deal of value on that. To me, that matters a lot. So, keep in mind, and I'm sure that Charles will cover all his tracks because he is so scientific. He's not a virologist. He's not a immunologist, which is what people keep referencing. They'll tell me that I'm not one of those people. And it's definitely news to me because I remember going to school for 8 years to have a PhD in virology. So, it's interesting times, that people are throwing that kind of stuff around. You don't need to go to school for anything in particular to have a voice on this. I think I've had a few people comment and say like that they personally aren't saying anything about what's going on because they don't feel they have a voice because they don't feel like they're a scientist. And I just said, I think you're living under a misconception that anyone can speak about this. Our kids should be talking about this. Our kids should have ideas and thoughts about this. This is a very serious topic. A lot of people are dying and we need to make sense of it as quickly as possible. And the fastest route is always to find the level at which the problem exists. And the only way to find that is through asking a lot of questions, and also errors, having a lot of failure. So I would put myself up against any of the leading researchers or scientists in the world because the information that I have, I could say one thing, they could say another, and there's a 50-50 chance that one of us is right. You know what I mean? So we either need to get back to work and we need to embrace this kind of herd immunity, or we need to continue to have shelter in place. And there is the third option of perhaps mingling the two things together. And that might be the ultimate answer. But how foolish of us if we just sat back and just continued to sit on our hands. Because my question to everybody is this. My question is, how long would you have to sit in your house for before you start asking questions like I do? Like the questions that I'm asking right now, how long do you need to be locked up for? Because we've been on this kind of like lockdown only for a handful of days, really. It really hasn't been that bad. But what if it continues for 3 more weeks? What if it continues for 3 more months? What if it continues for 3 more years? Are you going to just continue to sit on your hands? And I think there's a lot of things that have happened in this country that people don't want to openly talk about, but all the people that died in something like World War II, I can't think of people that would say that wasn't worth it. There's a lot of deaths that happened in World War II. A lot of American soldiers lost their lives, but we also got rid of fucking Hitler. We got rid of something, and you can kind of argue back and forth on what we got rid of or didn't get rid of, or whether you think war is useful or whatever. Like I'm not a fan of war, but we have conflict, and so therefore it happens, and therefore it may be necessary because you can't resolve the conflict. So, and you can't have somebody acting like a maniac like Hitler, right? But I think, and I'm not saying that we just all of a sudden go back to doing everything that we normally do and we fucking try to kill everybody with the coronavirus either. I'm saying that we go back in a responsible way and with the information that we have, keep ourselves clean, practice some social distancing. But let's get back to fucking work, and let's just say the numbers spiked again a little bit. Could you pull back and could you kind of say, all right, well, we tried that and we got fucking smacked in the face for it. We should, we made an error, but you have to make errors quickly.
But you literally can't just let someone with a differing opinion have something to say. And the whole idea of, don't give them a platform, give whoever you want a platform. People can come to their conclusions about what people are saying. It's so stupid to not even have a conversation.
It really is foolish. I over this kind of stuff, I've lost, 5,000 followers, and, I think that, I don't think that people have any fucking clue on what I'm doing, and maybe I don't know what I'm doing at times either, but it's really just to prevent censorship. Like, I don't want to be censored. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not going to, start saying a bunch of weird, crazy stuff just to like lose followers or have it be some sort of weird experiment. But at the same time, I'm not afraid to voice my opinion. And if it's slightly, even if it slightly hurts my business, I'm not afraid of that. We make great products. We make great stuff. We offer a great service. And I think that if people were to think about this and to put this into perspective a little bit, I've had a few people say, "Oh, I used to buy your products, but now I'm not," or something like that. And that's fine. If you want to associate me with the brand that much, that's okay. But then I would just call into question everything else that you purchase. You're just unaware of what other people's actions are that own things because they don't want to fucking talk. They don't want to say anything. They're afraid. They're scared to lose that money. They're scared to lose your purchase. And, I've never been that way. So I think I always find it interesting that at all the different turns of my lifting and podcasting and all the different things I've gone through over the years, is I think there's only a small subset of people that realize that I've never changed, that I've been pretty much the exact same. But for a lot of other people, the outsiders looking in that see me trying a CrossFit workout, going out and running, they see me doing these different things and they're like, what is he doing? Why is he trying yoga? Why is he, and they think I maybe have lost my mind. I'm just always in search of new things that are fun, exciting, and different, that keep me motivated, keep me excited, keep me passionate about every single day. And also, I want to learn about stuff, and I want to try to find the truth, and I want to try to make the best possible decisions for myself, for my family, for the people that work for us. And I also would love to take other people along that journey as well. And if they disagree with stuff, that's awesome, because if they're going to disagree and we can have a conversation, then maybe I can start to see their side of it. Maybe I can say, you know what, actually, I want to change my answer, as we've heard before on this podcast. Like that's actually a brilliant thing. Anyone that can say they want to change their answer is probably a highly intelligent person.
Yeah. Just real quick, Mark, I never got a contact for Charles.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cal Dietz. That was the Cal Dietz. I'd like to change my answer. But I think people need to be okay with being wrong sometimes. I think that's why people keep their mouth shut so much, because they're not sure if they're right. And that's fine. If you're not sure if you're right and you'd rather not speak on it, that's fine. But also, we're here just trying to figure it out, and we might be wrong about certain things, and that's okay. That shouldn't be a problem at all. But there's something I wanted to mention here. The one of the funny things I think has just been one of the funniest things since I've been on this podcast. I randomly see people put hate or be like, "I'm unfollowing you because you're a Trump supporter," and I always think that's the funniest thing, because guys, think about this. I've never liked Donald Trump. I thought he's a cool guy. He's a funny guy, but I've never been the biggest Donald Trump fan. And just because Mark says he likes Donald Trump, that doesn't change my opinion on him as an individual. You know what I mean? I feel that it's so weird to totally dismiss an individual's opinion because of the person that they like as the president. You know what I mean? It's so absolutely retarded. When you said you liked Trump and you were making that, never affected the way I looked at you as a human being or your opinions or your thoughts. It's just
people really drag. Yeah, people really drag a lot of baggage in there, and it wouldn't be any different if you said you preferred a Ninja blender over a Vitamix or a Samsung phone over an iPhone. We joke about those things, but I would never hate somebody for it or unfollow them because I noticed they had different colored text or something from their phone.
Yeah.
People just, they pull a lot of emotion into everything,
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. It really is crazy. But that's why this podcast is so great. The people that are open to listening to different conversations and different opinions are going to stick around. The individuals that don't want to listen to any other point of view can leave.
We're also very much open to talking to other people. So if people that are listening right now, if you have people you want to throw our way, we will do our best to get in contact with them. We are, trying to get in contact with more people. I feel that this is a really relevant topic, and it's the thing to talk about. There's a reason right now why we're not really talking a ton about squat, bench, and deadlift, although those are our favorite things to do. It's because this is the most relevant topic of our time, and it's hard to even talk about anything else without being like, oh wait, what's going on with the virus? How many people today? How many people are recovering? What's going on in this state? Like, it's hard not to want to, follow the news and follow, kind of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. I have very good news, by the way. The client that I told you guys about in New York, he gave me ability to say his name. His name is Chris Orr. So his sister who had corona, no symptoms at all. She was good. He's fully recovered. He had a bit of a cough, but he's pretty much fully recovered. His 50-something-year-old dad, who's had pneumonia, like a lot of pneumonia in the past and scarred lungs, he's having a little bit of a hard time, but he's over the hump and he's recovering. His mom, who was on chemo, who also had coronavirus, is now fully recovered. And she was on chemo when she had the virus. Like, they were really scared for her. She's recovered. And yeah, like, the full family got it. Full family's recovered. So yeah.
Also, people might want to check out Mike Mutzel. He's putting out some information about how to get tested. So if you want to check out some of his stuff, I think maybe Peter Itea has been talking about that a little bit as well. But that might be an important thing is to get tested and see if you have built up the immunity, because there's going to be one of my things too is like, there's going to be a point, there's going to be a point where they do tell you, hey, go about your stuff, but they're not going to like push a button and say, hey, everything's back to normal. You're going to still have to make the best informed decision that you can possibly make. There he is.
What's up?
What's going on, buddy?
How's it going? You guys hear me all right?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
What do you mean, like a boiler room or something over there? What's going on?
I'm in my production office. I have to have two offices. I got one with all the management folks and one with all the production folks. So don't have to scrub in and out all the time.
Hey, give us, Charles, we've had you on the podcast before, but give us a little background, some of your education, and then also kind of take us into more modern day, like what you're doing for work nowadays.
Sure. So I started off actually as a strongman, competing pretty regularly there, and then decided to finish my education up north in Chico. Got a master's degree in microbiology. During that time, I worked in a USDA certified meat processing plant, and I did all the microbiology for that facility. So meat carcass testing, water quality testing, things like that, everything that goes into having a certified product when it goes out the door. I kind of took all that and then brought that in-house so we could do all the testing, save some money, and then teach the College of Agricultural students there how to do it. And it was no big deal for me because in those types of microbiological concepts are pretty straightforward. But for agricultural students who don't have that science background, it's kind of rough. Did my master's thesis in iron bacteria, so iron oxidizing and reducing bacteria, and how they affect heavy metals, mainly mercury. And then from there,
in the body or outside the body? What is that?
In the environment. So I studied
in the environment. Got it.
So estuarine ecosystems. So Motley and Bodega Bay actually placed downstream from what's called the Gambonini mercury mine. Most people think about mercury. They think of the foothills and like the Sierra Nevadas, but actually, to get the gold out of the Sierra Nevada foothills, we had to extract the mercury from the coast. So there was a bunch of mercury mines along the coast of here in California, and they took that mercury and they used it to extract the gold in the foothills.
Maybe I am going crazy with all the mercury around here.
Maybe. Luckily for the Bodega Bay, that was deemed a Superfund site up there, and that's part of the reason I was working on it, was trying to figure out what the residual mercury levels were downstream of that. But not all mercury is bad. my grandpa used to have a big, little jar of mercury. You stick your finger, wiggle it around in there, and it's all good. You're not going to die. But at the same time, if certain bacteria get a hold of it, they methylate it. And adding that methyl group to it allows it to move past the blood-brain barrier. And once it moves back into the blood-brain barrier, into the brain, it can concentrate there. And that's when you get these neurotoxic effects of mercury that you see around, like the classic signs of like Minamata Bay disease, that's like the hallmark of mercury poisoning. And that's where we really started to find out about it back in like the 60s. So from Chico studying that, doing a lot of work in estuaries and on iron, I moved to managing a lab at UC Davis, so the Systems, Microbiology, and Natural Products group. We're mainly concerned with metagenomics, large omics platforms to try to discover new enzymes, how they can help break down biomass, convert recalcitrant fiber into usable carbohydrates and sugars. And then we took a more holistic approach to microbiomes and how they interact with each other. And then our probably the most hallmark study out of that right now, we've got quite a few under review right now, some pretty large papers that I'm still collaborating on. But right now, the biggest paper out of that was the seaweed being fed to beef trial. So I still get emails every day about what we did there, and people trying to figure out, is this going to be the new thing, or all cows going to get fed seaweed? Like, well, to be determined. I don't know. I sent that tasting panel off. I don't know if you got a chance to go over there and try some. My son was born like a day after that, so I wasn't able to go over there and try some of that seaweed beef. So,
what's some of the deal with the seaweed beef?
So, our main purpose was there had been some anecdotal evidence before about cows that were grown across the coastline. They were getting into seaweed, and for some reason they seemed to be growing a little bit larger off less feed. So they had increased feed efficiency. And, trying to understand that, I mean, that would be every grower's dream. Obviously, you want to feed your cattle less and have them grow bigger. But really, what it came down to is they started investigating all these different seaweeds, and a specific one, it's called Asparagopsis taxiformis. It's a red seaweed that right now they've found it off the coast of Australia, but we've also found some off the coast of here, California. It has a bioactive in it called bromomethane, which is just a bromine with a bunch of hydrogens, hydrogenated bromine. And what it does, we found, is since it's so similar to methane, that it's actually inhibiting the methanogenesis pathway in ruminant animals. So in the lab, I built a artificial gut system to study this on top of it. Yeah, why not? I mean, because we had one, but after using it for a while, I hated it. It was a piece of shit. So I built one out of stainless steel, and I custom fit everything, made it really easy to use. And I've got another study going on right now with making sure that one's all viable. But the idea was that if we can inhibit methane production in the animal, methane was just a waste pathway. So you have the microorganisms in the cow gut are actually extremely important for energy production. If we can inhibit methane production, you have all that energy that goes into making methane. You can shuttle into making other volatile fatty acids that the animal can actually use for energy and meat, production of meat. So meat yield or milk yield, because we did this in dairy cattle actually. We did it in milk and beef cattle as well, but we started in dairy cattle. So the lab bench results were pretty obvious right away. We added this at like 1% or feed, and we eliminated methane from the animal or from the in vitro system. And so after we published that work, it was pretty obvious, like, well, we got to do it in a bunch of cows. And so what I had sent you about that meat tasting panel, that was the culmination of that. So they finally finished it. I'm I think they're still sifting through most of the data. I think it does look very promising. I mean, I think we were able to achieve, I don't think it's as potent as a methane reducer in the animal than it is in the bench. I think we're still going to get a very promising 25 to 30% reduction. But what that translates into like meat yield is going to be, that's where it's going to be interesting. That's where you're going to get a farmer to say, hey, I can get X amount of more meat out of my beef. This is why I want to do this. Because no one's going to want to go and try to find seaweed to feed their cows just because it's fun, unless they have an incentive, capital incentive to do so. It's pointless. So, and then I worked on a bunch of other projects at Davis, mainly metagenomics based. Played with some cyanobacteria from all over the world from extreme environments. So things that grow in like pH, 3 or 4, acid baths and boiling hot springs and things like that. Just cultured them, see how they grow together, and then analyze the whole communities to see how they're interacting with each other. But eventually the money runs out. So, I was operating on a couple of grants, fairly large grants for those projects. And then when we wrapped those projects up, there wasn't any like stark, big gold nugget for me to stay and say, hey, continue to, plug away and manage this lab. So I took a position closer to my home managing I started in the food safety and quality aspects of a big tree nut facility here in Yuba City. And after doing that for a couple of months, they seemed to like me pretty much, and so they made me the plant manager. So now I've been managing this plant for all season, just trying to make sure nuts get out of their shell and get in a bag.
So you've done quite a bit of research. You mentioned to me before that at some point that your research, even though it was geared towards a specific, like one specific thing, it has also been used by the opposition, right? Like maybe they've used segments of some of your research and stuff. Can you speak about that? Because I think a lot of that is probably what's going on right now with the COVID-19 stuff, that we're seeing so many articles coming at us. It's hard to make sense of what the hell's going on out there. So can you speak about that a little bit, about how they took, some of your research that found one thing, but then it was kind of used to promote something else?
Yeah. And that's always going to be the hard part with science, especially like sensational science, because it sounds fun, like, hey, you fed seaweed to cows and like they don't make any more methane. But
save the planet.
Yeah, exactly. No, 100%. And you know what? I think sustainability and efficiency are two sides of the same coin. I think if you can increase your sustainability, you should be able to increase your efficiency. But that was the goal, and I'm not gonna try to bait you and say it wasn't. But there's a lot of money in climate research right now. There still has been. As long as there's going to be this push, there's going to be grant funding out there to try to fuel it. But one of my main drives for working on the project is, I was interested in making more efficient beef, because if you have more efficient beef, if you can make an end product, meat or milk, with less inputs, isn't that the definition of sustainability? I mean, you're using less to make more. And so as far as using the specific seaweed, because personally, we have the chemical. We can feed the chemical to the beef. Like bromoform, you can use an extract and you can do the same thing. You can wipe it out. But the problem is people aren't going to like that very much. It's the same reason we don't use, steroids in beef, right? Like, why not? Why not make a big ass animal? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not worried, and that's where the science breaks down. Is like, I'm not worried about there being leftover, test in some beef residual. If it makes it bigger on less food, who cares? But you're not, and then you see the same arguments with like GMOs and things like that. You get from the same crowd that says, I'm pro science and I'm backed by the science. I'm like, yeah, but you make dumbass decisions about what you want to give to your beef to make them grow. So that specific project, we've been in touch with like Congress people and all kinds of stuff who are trying to utilize it. I mean, this was part of the Green New Deal. They wanted to push for, elimination of, methane production from cattle, and the feasibility. But the thing is they used the data based on like the in vitro trials, not in vivo, in vitro trials to sustain that. And we didn't even know if it worked in, large scale beef yet. So they took that and said, hey, you can use a seaweed, like, let's do it. And I'm like, yeah, that's a great thought, but we need to make sure that this is actually functioning. And then you can't just push that off on farmers and here, use it. So it was a large effort. I mean, the Department of Energy reached out to us and they were interested in, because the Department of Energy is always looking out for, the next thing. Mm-hmm. One of the next things is going to be non-terrestrial farming. So farming off the coast. The United States has a very large coastline on, both sides. So why not, capitalize on that and grow something? And one of the ideas was growing this red seaweed off the coast. But in order to do that, you'd have a huge infrastructure ramp up, huge infrastructure investment. And we didn't, I don't think we had the data enough to support that at that time. Yeah, we had something, but it wasn't like, hey, I'm going to throw, $1 billion at this to see if it works. I want to make sure something works before I throw the money at it.
There's a lot of cows out here where I'm at.
There's lots of cows.
Yeah, I'm near the coast, and it's, there's some decent like beach stuff, but there's cows everywhere up here. Pretty cool.
Well, it's beautiful, great rangeland up there.
Yeah,
and that's the thing, is because the land is so fertile up there, you don't have to spend a lot of money on feeding them. You just let them graze for the most of their life, and then you finally take them to a finishing lot, or keep them as grass finished beef or what have you. Whatever you need to do to make it profitable, because that's what it's about. At the end of the day, is profit.
Right.
So, but yeah, that was definitely, and I still get people they get pretty tuned up, and that's the thing is, I'm like, yeah, I'm into sustainability. I think it definitely has a place in manufacturing and agriculture for sure, as long as the end result is reasonable. And the implementation is reasonable. But people get mad at me still today, like, you're a fucking idiot. Why you start trying to feed seaweed to beef? If beef were meant to eat seaweed, they'd be in the sea. That's a verbatim comment that's come to me. So at the same time, I'm like, what? Sorry, like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't make the rules. I just did the science.
Yeah. Do you think there's any reason at the moment for anyone to be fearful about our food supply? I'm not really sure where this came from, but everybody, kind of freaked out and they bought a bunch of toilet paper and a bunch of other stuff. Like, is our food supply in question, or because you're on the front lines of that?
Yeah. So no, and I was on a conference call with the FDA when this stuff all started rolling out. Right now, there seems to be no shortage. I'll tell you what happened. I've been slammed. Like, what happened was people panic bought everything. It emptied the shelves. So everyone pushed up their orders. Like, we've got orders all year long to fulfill, but everyone pushed up their orders, 2 and 3 months to fulfill that. And I was like, well, my 1 million pound April is now, 1.3 to 1.5 million pounds. Or, just before that, we were riding at 1 million pounds anyway, and everything just shot through the roof. So now we're trying to do everything we can to fulfill it. Because who cares when we get paid for it, as long as the product's going out, I don't care. So we're doing everything we can to try to keep up with demand. And we got the product, don't get me wrong. What the problem is going to be, if this continues, is really what I've seen is going to be a personnel issue. Whether or not we have the manpower to continue to operate on a large scale in all these production facilities. We had like Blue Diamond had a positive result a while back, and they responded very aggressively. And then there's been some other food production facilities that have had positive results from some of their employees and have had to respond in kind. So what it's not coming down to, like, they're losing them due to the illness, though. What's happening is the federal government has made an incentive for them to not come to work. So now you have 10 days of emergency sick leave, and then you have like 12 weeks of, family leave. So, it's at a reduced pay, but, you have all this federal compensation, and the rules for taking it are very relaxed. even if you're just scared to come to work, you can take it, and that's making a negative incentive for food manufacturing, the production personnel for food manufacturing plants. So every day that goes by this month is a good day for me, as long as we have the people. But, for me, I don't have any faith in the federal government at all. I don't trust that they're going to, cut me a check in a timely manner. I know if I go to work, I'll get paid. So that's what I've been trying to tell people. Like, obviously, the federal government doesn't have this under control. Why would you trust them to send you a check? So,
yeah. Have you guys has there been any thought to like food waste? Because I was just imagining like so many people buying all of the chicken breast in the store, and then they realize, oh man, this doesn't taste as good as Top Ramen or something. Yeah. So is that like a cause for concern for you guys?
It's hard, not for us because our shelf life is so huge, but there are definitely shelf stable items coming from food manufacturing sites that aren't making it. So they're being wasted. Like onions are a large one right now. Onions, tomatoes, things like that. Things that typically go straight to like restaurants and things. Well, all the restaurants have, decreased their capacity or they're not operating at all. So you have all this food that has no outlet. So largely what's happening is they're ditching it into compost because there's no outlet, and you can try to donate it, but the problem is it's perishable. Mm-hmm. They're extremely perishable. So trying to donate it in a timely manner, that's difficult. So we're definitely seeing that on the production side. If things don't have that shelf stability, we're definitely going to start to see some waste. For meat, nah, you can freeze meat and it's good forever. As long as you got a working freezer, you'll be good to go. I've been talking to, so I was just at the country butcher the other day, and they're fully stocked. There's always beef. Like the beef haven't stopped being made. They don't stop growing and they don't stop eating.
Any chance of the animals getting sick?
Not that I've seen. I mean, it was a real extreme jump from bats or wherever this came from, or the lab, who knows, to humans. And it seems to be extremely stable as far as mutations are concerned. So its ability to enter another animal would be a stretch. I mean, it's in mammals already, but immune systems among mammals are robustly different. So I don't see that happening. I can't say that for sure, but the mutation rate of the thing is pretty low, which is extremely interesting.
I might be totally off, but did last week or 2 weeks ago, did we see some type of article of someone saying a tiger got corona, or was that a joke? Is that a Tiger King joke?
I'm pretty sure that's a Tiger King joke.
I did see it come up on the actual news itself too, though, where there was a tiger in captivity where they were talking about it, but I didn't see any more information about it. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully it doesn't go, running rampant through some of our animals.
Yeah. Well, that would be, if they had an animal reservoir, that would make it far worse. Because right now it doesn't really look like, it jumps from human to human very well. And it can move through the animal system, but I don't know if it's going to have the same, what type of effect are we going to see on an animal? Like, is a tiger going to get pneumonia?
What are some of your honest opinions about it, and maybe some of the opinions of your colleagues as well?
And I'll try to be as reserved as possible, but I see. I think it's a little over the top. I think we should be safe. As a microbiologist, I try not to touch too many people anyway. But people are pretty gross. But what you're seeing right now out in the supermarkets and stuff like that, that's fear. I mean, you're seeing fear manifest itself. And people act without real reason. When you see people wearing N95 mask and gloves to the store, but then holding onto their cell phone with their gloves, it doesn't make it doesn't make sense. They don't understand what they're trying to do. So I see. There's definitely a lot of fear in that, but I think we're going to start to see like this this study that came out of UCLA that's going to be published here in the next couple of days for this antibody testing of just random individuals, people who aren't even sick. There seems to be a high rate of people that already have antibodies to this. Mm-hmm. So it's highly likely that this thing's moved through our healthy community fairly well, and that, you know, this spike in that, what we're seeing, the spike in the vulnerable population is just that, is the spike in the vulnerable population, also brought on by, you know, a ramp up in testing. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm downplaying it. So I do know individuals who have been treating, you know, this virus on the front line that are confirmed cases. It's very serious in individuals that have these underlying conditions. But is it any more serious that if these individuals would just come down with a bad case of pneumonia? That's the question. The reason they're getting this pneumonia is because the virus is sending them into, you know, pretty much immune system overdrive, cytokine storm, and they're not able to react to, you know, regular bacterial pathogens normally. And I think that's why the hydroxychloroquine and the Z-Pak are working so well, because they're largely being used as anti-inflammatories. So they're decreasing the inflammation. That's why they use it for like rheumatoid arthritis and stuff. They use hydroxychloroquine for that as well. So they're just a decrease in inflammation. I don't think it's really interacting with the virus itself at all. I think it's just decreasing inflammation to help the body recover. So I think the virus is real. I'm not going to say, like, I know you had a guy on here who was just like, this shit's not real. It's definitely real. I think it's just going to move through our community a lot differently. And, you know, I think it's unfortunate that what you're seeing around the world as far as people just give up, you know, civil liberties for, you know, the sake of safety. I try to be pretty staunch in my views of people being free to do whatever they want. But when the federal government comes in and tells you can't, or even your state and local government comes in and tells you can't go to church, or you can't go buy a gun, or you can't go do this and that because of the virus, well, fuck the virus. So,
right.
But as you know, from an immunological standpoint, it seems it doesn't look all that different. I mean, it dampens your immune system. It means it just has an overreaction. It leaves you open to bacterial infection. You know, you get pneumonia, and it seems to persist a little bit longer. So, again, whether or not it's going to stick around, I don't think it doesn't look seasonal. It doesn't look like it's going to mutate and come back. You know, it just depends on how long the antibodies last in the community. You know, if you get it, how long do your antibodies last? Usually they last for quite a long time. You know, you shouldn't get it, you know, time and time again. This is a novel corona type virus. So there's no reason for them to be it's not like there's a bunch of them, like a bunch of rhinoviruses or adenoviruses. There's not like a ton of them. It's a very novel jump of this coronavirus into humans. So it could be a one-off. I don't know, unless they're making more.
You know, I'm curious about this. You were talking about people able to take off work and they're getting a percentage of their pay, but they're getting incentivized to not come to work. What percentage do you think, I don't know if it's different factories have different people leaving, but what percentage of workers do you think are just like not coming to work because of all of this?
Well, it depends. It depends on what their position is, their seasonality. So a lot of, you know, food production is definitely seasonal. So you have a lot of seasonal workers that come in and come out regularly. And a lot of them are, you know, on the lower end of the pay scale as far as like what their positions are. So, unfortunately, you're going to see a lot of people cut out. You do see a lot of people staying. I will say that there's a lot of people who are very adamant to stay and work. But there are some people that have been around for, a couple of weeks and then, I don't know if I can quote you a percentage, but it's also on part of like the employer to utilize this to make sure everyone else stays safe. So part of our, you know, GMP guidelines, so good manufacturing practice guidelines, if someone looks sick, you send them home. Right now, if someone looks sick, they go home for like a week. So, but that's part of the emergency sick leave program, is if we send them home because they look sick, that, that's part of it. They get to utilize those benefits and make sure they continue to be paid. So it's going to be a mixture of that. It's going to be a mixture of production facilities being overly cautious, and then it's going to be a mixture of individuals taking advantage of what's coming out as far as unemployment is concerned, medical leave, things like that. And you're going to see people starting to just want to get laid off and go on unemployment, because now the unemployment benefits, like in California, have jumped. They tacked on an extra $600 on top of those unemployment benefits. So really just pushing the envelope to make, why work? Why work if you could stay home and make the same?
Would this be in your wheelhouse? You hear people a lot of times, and you're not really hearing about it quite as much. And it's also my understanding sometimes that happens at home as well. But, I've heard many people talk about like food poisoning. They're like, oh man, I must have, and they're not sure if they had the flu or if they had food poisoning, or, how does something like that happen? I mean, you can get as gross as necessary, but like, how do things like this happen? Like, what is in our food? Is it, I guess it could be like not cooked properly, or it could be contaminated with something. In your line of work, like, what have you been, like, what do you look for, and what are some practices to try to avoid stuff like that?
Well, so in the meat industry, it was very different than it is in the tree nut industry. So tree nut industry, per FSMA guidelines.
Yeah.
So
what are some maybe straight up just like no-nos with like meat? I hear some people say, leave your meat out, for a few hours till it gets like room temperature. What are some of the, and how long can our meat stay in the fridge and that kind of stuff?
I mean, those are all very good questions. So the idea first is to, when you get your meat, you want to separate, chill, and then cook. So separate, chill, or freeze.
Separate from what?
Itself, each other. So if you get a big pack of chicken thighs, you want to open it up, separate it into usable portions, and then freeze it. You don't want to be thawing it and freezing it and thawing it and freezing it. So it's all about it's going to be the level, the temperature range, what we call the danger zone. So once it's above a certain threshold for different products and different organisms, how long it can stay in that threshold for a certain amount of time before
it's like done.
Microorganisms begin to replicate or produce toxins. So take salmonella, for instance. You go to some shady ass food truck, and they didn't, chill their chicken right, and
Andrew, cover your ears, Andrew.
I know. I was going to say, I feel attacked right now.
So, no, I mean, I think a bunch of people got like food poisoning at this was like CrossFit event I went to, judging at, and everyone ate a bunch of like chicken salad, and it was just like, well, it could have been the greens, but it's probably that's not to say, I mean, all chicken has salmonella on it. Treat it as such. But there's other, like meat or beef, there's a high prevalence for E. coli on it, right? And depending on what your symptoms are going to dictate like what type of poisoning you got. So for salmonella, if you ingest a bunch of salmonella grows in you, right? So you get salmonellosis. So it'll last for a couple of days, and you'll have terrible diarrhea and things like that because the organism is growing in you, reproducing, and then fighting with your immune system. But E. coli is going to be different. So E. coli is going to grow on the surface of the meat, right? Because the microorganisms can't penetrate the tissue unless it's like all ground up, right? Unless you have the surface meat all introduced. But if it's going to grow on the surface, you have the whole muscle cut. It's going to grow on the surface. And that's why dry aging and things like that, they're typically okay if kept under proper conditions. Things can grow on there because you're going to scrape it off and you're going to burn it, right? So everything's going to die. But there are a couple instances where an E. coli can produce something like a heat-stable toxin, where it's a toxin that does not break down due to heat. It's incredibly strong. So it doesn't matter if you cook it, to the correct temperature, 165, whatever, or rare, 135, 145. It doesn't matter. That toxin, the microorganism might die, but the toxin load is already on the meat. So those have a very different resemblance than something like salmonellosis. So if you ingest that heat stable toxin, you'll be sick within hours. Your body will induce vomiting, diarrhea, things like that. Salmonellosis, it might take 24, 36 hours before you start to feel that. That's why you usually wake up the next day and you feel ill, right? You ate something bad yesterday morning and you wake up and you feel bad.
Worst thing ever.
Right. But if you eat something bad and it comes back up a couple hours later, then you're talking about it's an intoxication against, an infection. Right. So, but E. coli is very apt for beef because you take the skin off of beef skin's covered in shit. Like, I don't care that's the way it is. You've seen beef, like they're gross. So you're trying to, eviscerate. So you're trying to separate the skin from the meat and trying not to get shit on it. So there's other things that happen in a meat processing facility, like you pressure wash the carcass, you spray with acetic acid to reduce the pH load so nothing can grow. And then if you keep it as a whole muscle cut, then you can burn it and make sure it's all good to go. But like if you're going to grind it, the microbiological requirements through USDA are far higher. So your sampling protocol and your testing protocols are far more rigorous for like a ground beef than it is for just like a carcass. So if you just have a carcass laying there, we do what's called like an N60 test. You take 60 1-inch cutting squares randomly throughout the carcass lot, and then you enrich them and test them for E. coli 0157H7 or something like that. But if you want to do ground beef, you have to do like 360 grams before and after grind of the same carcass lot you got tissue samples for. Now you have to test it after it's ground up. And then whoever buys that meat for their facility, they're probably going to test it too before they sell it. So it's tested at each chain. And any positives are generally automatically sent to the USDA or the FDA, depending on what happens to the results. Typically, beef is regulated by USDA, whereas everything else is regulated by the FDA. But there's like an online guidance system where, positive hits automatically go. So they can trace that stuff back to where it came from. So yeah, intoxication and infection is going to be very different. How they resemble or how they present. I mean, there's other terrible, foodborne diseases, like Clostridium botulinum. That's a major issue. That's why you don't feed babies honey, right?
So why don't you feed babies honey?
So Clostridium botulinum is a very common spore-forming organism that is actually found in most honey, and you can't heat process honey. You destroy it. So all honey has the potential that you'll have a Clostridium botulinum spore. When you get older, you develop the immunity for those, Clostridium botulinum, and your immune system can ward it off, can destroy it before it's a problem. It's no problem at all. But those very, very few spores that may be found in there in a baby, they do not have the antibodies. They don't have the memory response in their immune system to attack that and break it down. Small children will get botulism. So, that's not what you want. So botulism is the opposite of tetanus, right? So instead of Clostridium tetani, you have Clostridium botulinum. Tetanus is going to be, extreme muscle contractions, lockjaw, things like that. Whereas Clostridium botulinum is going to be extreme relaxation to the point where all your muscles relax and you can't breathe. So, right. So, two sides of the same coin, same organism family. So it's just how they act on the acetylcholine receptors in your muscles.
About how long can you have some meat in like your refrigerator?
In the fridge?
Yeah. Like you just bought it from the store. You got like what, 3 to 6 days or something like that?
It depends on when it was processed. It's right. That's difficult to say.
Yeah, how long has it been sitting at the store and stuff like that, right?
Exactly, because there's sometimes you got stuff that on manager special that's going to go bad in like 2 days. You better get on top of it. So at the same time, was that?
How about, okay, so like on that question, but then also like with Piedmontese, they send beef that's like packaged inside of these tightly plastic, packages where it's like, exactly. Can those sit longer than what Mark's talking about too? Or no?
Technically, yes, but it's going to be for a quality standpoint, not really a microbiological standpoint. So the backpack is going to be reduced oxygen in the packaging, so you don't get increased oxidation. Oxidized meat is going to have a more metal-like taste. You're literally oxidizing the iron in the meat, the hemoglobin. So not that there's not really any blood in the whole muscle cuts anymore. Most of what you're seeing is pigmented water, but there is going to be some oxidation. That's why sometimes you see meat that has like a green tinge on it. So when iron oxidizes, it does turn it has like a green.
So is that what's happening when you have the meat on top of each other? We were just talking about this more recently, and then sometimes you take the one piece off and the other one's like gray-ish looking.
It could be gray. That could just be surface contact. Mostly, in order to get oxidation, it has to be directly exposed to air.
I got it.
So the gray is actually might even be reduction of iron. So it's about this middle area. Once you start to oxidize iron too far, it starts to turn a bunch of different colors.
Red meat is confusing. It's like a banana. You unpeel it, and all of a sudden it turns a different color.
So
monkeys are scratching their head all the time, right?
But once it starts to oxidize too far, then it starts to get green, or if it gets reduced, it can be gray. And you can just see this on regular. Like if you go into your barbell, it's the difference between like a rust and a good patina. So depending on how oxidized, this thing is. I've been restoring a barbell in my garage right now because I had to resurrect it from the dead because my gym shut. But like trying to get that back to use and trying to get through the rust and all that. So the acetic acid works well. But anyways, so it's definitely, I would say by the time you get a piece of meat, if you're not going to cook it within 5 days, you should freeze it. And then once you thaw it, you should use it within 2 to 3 days. That's going to be basic guidance. Don't wash chicken. That's gross. That's
you mentioned. Go ahead. Why wouldn't you wash chicken?
It splashes salmonella all over the place.
Okay.
Yeah.
So every piece of chicken you have has salmonella on it. You mentioned pigment in the meat. We've kind of heard conflicting evidence before. Like, is meat ever injected with anything to give it a certain color or anything like that? Salmon is. Salmon most certainly is. Farm raised salmon is white because they get that pigment from krill. But farm raised salmon aren't raised, on natural krill, so they don't get that red color. Beef does not. When I talk about pigment, I'm talking about the actual hemoglobin molecule. It reflects red light. So just by the oxidation of iron in it. So no, as far as I'm concerned, back in the day, like way back in the day, back in like 1900s day, they used to grind up meat and mix it with like shoe polish and stuff, like red shoe polish to make it look nice, bright and red. But that was before there were any rules. So, but yeah.
The good old days.
Shine it up.
Yeah. Just give me some of that shoe shine.
Yeah. You said, people buying like the manager special with, that has like a little bit quicker date. Even when it's like something like milk, right? It's like the day of, or maybe the day yesterday, you're like, I should be okay. The date that says like freeze by or consume by, is that like it, or is that just like a really good recommendation?
It's basic guidance.
Got it.
And these are based on internal shelf life.
You got at least 5 more days.
Yeah.
Well, again, it's going to be a variability because okay, so you get sour milk.
Ugh.
Congratulations on your buttermilk. That's going to be the problem. There is a gray area, and it's about health. Because milk is not sterile, right? Milk is pasteurized, and pasteurization does not eliminate microorganisms. It just reduces the total microbial load. So if you start off with a very high microbial load and you pasteurize them, well, the higher microbial load start off is going to turn sour faster, right? Than something that had very low microbial load and was pasteurized. That might stay good for a much longer period of time, because we're trying to pasteurize them down into 1, 2 microorganisms, 2 or 3 colony forming units per gram, and these are viable cells. But I mean, the logarithmic scale of microorganisms, they double. So if you have 4, well, all they need to do is double once, you got 8. And how long does that take? If it takes, and then if you're like chugging it straight off the juice, like right off the carton, then all the bacteria from your mouth are now in the carton too, right? So now you've introduced that microbial load, and now you're going to increase that, and it's going to start to turn faster. When I was in college, I did the GOMAT. Like I was on GOMAT. I drank a gallon of milk a day, so it didn't fucking matter, right? So because it doesn't matter, that milk's going to get finished that day, so I'm gonna carry it around all day. As long as I can drink it before they double to a meaningful number, I'm all right.
What about raw milk?
Yeah, well, again, not pasteurized, right? So the question is going to be is what is the microbial load going into it? And there are other methods of reducing microbial load. It's all going to be about cleanliness of the udder when you're milking the animal. There's a lot of things that people do. I mean, I don't know if you've been to a meat or a milking plant, like torching.
No, I've never had milk straight up from the cow that I can remember. But my parents told me that they took me somewhere and I had it right from the cow at some point. Yeah. But like, I don't recall what that's like or what that tastes like or anything.
Yeah, I mean, some people swear by it. They can only drink raw milk. Because pasteurization is going to change the protein structure for sure. So there's people that can't drink milk, but they can drink raw milk.
Right.
And again, it's going to be about how long does it take for those microorganisms to flip, to start turning bad. There's another part of that, like for cheese, for instance, where because not all microorganisms are bad, right? They're okay. They're just trying to eat and make a living. But for like some cheeses, depending on the inherent microbiome of the milk or the cask that the milk sits in to make cheese, it may be able to outcompete whatever is in it. And so those microorganisms or those pathogens can't grow. So there's a play there. And if those organisms that are inherent to that milk come into the raw milk, then it may be okay for a little bit longer. But again, you still have microorganisms in the milk. They're going to double. They're going to eat it. And they're going to make acid. Because that's what they do. They break down carbohydrates and make lactic acid or whatever. And then that's what you feel, the sour.
Since we're on the topic of milk here, I think Chris Bell's the one who told me about it. And he started drinking a lot of A2 milk, and apparently he said it helped his lactose intolerance. Why is it that A2 milk is so beneficial for people that have that? Do you know?
Well, it may have less sugar.
Okay.
Or the sugars may be in the same conformation that they were naturally in, that your body has an enzyme to process. So what could be happening is that after pasteurization or after processing, it changes the conformation of the sugar, so your body's enzymes can't recognize it. Whereas if you drink a raw milk or a different type of milk that hasn't been as processed, then your body may be able to recognize it. But lactose intolerance is, in my opinion, less of a genetic thing and more of a conditioning thing. Because you would all know if you stop eating pizza for like a month and then you eat pizza, you got a pizza intolerance too, right? Like, what's going to happen after you eat that pizza?
Oh, big old...
all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
Right, but the same thing's going to happen with milk. So, like, if you say, oh, I'm lactose intolerant, it's like, yeah, because you drink milk like once every 6 months. Right. But if you start very slow and you build that tolerance back up and you make your body understand that it's going to be producing this lactase enzyme more often, it can ramp up to that. It's just like, or if you, you eat like Carbonite. Remember D.H. Kiefer's Carbonite?
Mm-hmm.
When like you go through it and you can't, you're not eating or 30 grams of carbs or less. And then that carb night, you chow down, you hit it hard, like Sour Patch Kids all night. And then your body's like, oh, fuck, I forgot how to make insulin. And then your blood sugar skyrockets through the roof, and then you go into a little bitty diabetic coma and you fall asleep. Everyone here has experieed that. Yep. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So, it's about, but if you, after that, you do a little bit of carbs, a little bit of carbs, a little bit of carbs. Yeah, carbs might make you more tired because your blood sugar is higher, because your body can't process the carbs as effectively because it doesn't have insulin. But it's not going to be as dramatic, right? You can get back to a point where you can eat pizza every day and not, pass out or shit your pants.
Yeah.
Have you personally tried the carnivore diet?
So I haven't yet. So I've been, I've done keto. I did for forever. I was just doing keto for forever anyway. I've done a lot of intermittent fasting. I haven't switched all the way over to the carnivore. Sometimes I felt like I was when I was keto.
How does the low carb stuff work for you doing strongman stuff? Does it work okay?
It's fine because there's no aerobic work. It depends on the contest. I won't say that. It depends on the contest. If there's going to be a lot of moving events, then yeah, I might need some carbs online. But for the most part, strongman's going to be very anaerobic. As long as you have a good creatine level, you should be pretty square. What I will say is, I think every strongman out there does keto for the week before a contest because they're trying to make weight, right? And everyone knows that. I mean, that's the one way to make weight. You cut out carbs for a week and then you water load, right? And so it's unfortunate because that's what I see. All these testimonials about ketogenic diets. I lost 9 pounds in the first week. Fuck, of course you did. Of course you did. That's why everyone does it right before a contest, because I'm going to compete in that lower weight class. I haven't tried the pure carnivore diet. I'm fairly certain that I've been there at one point or time or another when I was doing keto. It was bad keto where you don't have enough fat, because I was working at the meat processing plant, and it's very easy to just cut off a piece of meat or get some trim and throw it on the little skillet, go for it. So that was every day. And you do that early in the morning. And I'd come in early in the morning to get these tests started. Then I come in late in the afternoon to get these tests pulled out. And that's what you do. You go grab a pack of sausage, you go grab some trimmed ribeye or whatever, or some ribeye trimmings, and you make a little meat salad.
Are you able to do your strongman stuff now, or is it strongman is very particular with the types of apparatus and stuff you have? Do you own some of your own stuff, or how are you getting it done?
Yeah, I've been collecting garbage for 10 years. So it's all spread out though. So when I moved to Chico, I started collecting a lot more, and then I started hooking up with a bunch of other guys who were interested in strongman and getting them trained up, and we all started competing together and stuff. So now all my equipment is all spread throughout California, because when I moved, I didn't take a lot with me. I put some of it at Ron's gym, Ironborn Strength. So some stuff's there, some stuff's at just people's houses now. There's some at a CrossFit box in Dixon, and then still some in Chico. So, I've got what I need to continue to train right now. I've got, I got one of those competition beast metals racks where the hydraulic jacks failed. So I've got a set of those, just a bar every condition with a bunch of weights. So I could do most of the things.
What do you think's next in terms of where the country will go? You think they'll kind of let some people go back to work and they'll kind of roll things out in stages, or do you think maybe we will embrace a herd immunity, or what are your thoughts?
We're going to have to embrace herd immunity eventually. That's the only route forward. Because we just live like this forever and hope that every last person doesn't get it. Live in fear of a goddamn RNA virus.
I've been hiding under my bed.
Well, yep, your bed's bigger than mine. So, so as far as the country's decisions, it's hard to say what they will say. What they'll want to roll out or what their plan is to do. But Every day people lose jobs. There's a direct correlation with suicide with job loss. People get fearful regardless of the federal programs. If they don't know about the federal programs that are out there to protect them, we have people who started businesses and now are forced to shut. They don't have 6 months of expenses built up to try to string their business along, because their landlords aren't stopping rent. They might defer them, but that's still months upon months of lost revenue. And especially for small businesses that are just getting started, like and it caught us at the boom of the economy. Like it was never a better time to get shit rolling. And now you've seen people get their legs cut off from under them because they're deemed non-essential. Me and mine, everything I do is essential because it's important to me and my family. So it's none of the federal government's business what I do on a daily basis. They're going to have to start letting people out, because otherwise they're going to start to revolt. We should have already started to revolt, but it's just going to get nastier and nastier as time goes on. The movie theaters are going to be closed. Restaurants are going to be closed. People want to get back to the resemblance of life. And what I'm seeing now already is, because 2 weeks ago, people were literally wearing trash bags, gloves, and, masks. That's no joke. Like wearing trash bags. I can promise you all, it doesn't contract itself through skin. It's through mucous membranes, so you don't have to worry about it touching you. And it dies on your skin within 20 minutes. So just don't touch your face. That's something we should get into later, but or I can recap on after this. But I think they're going to start to open it back up because President's not going to want his legacy going into this election to be, not only did I build the biggest economy, I right-handedly destroyed it. No one wants that. So I'm sure they're going to try to push to open it. But those are the questions that people aren't really asking. Is like, when, what's the loss of life? They're hard questions. And some people say, oh, no one loss of life is worth it. Okay, but what about the guy who loses his job and commits suicide because he can't support his family? Was that worth it? And no one's willing to have that conversation. They're putting them in two separate boxes, but they're not. It's all very connected. And I hope that we can see that and then make some informed policy decisions based on that,
right?
Instead of putting our head on the sand. So
very well said. I agree.
But one thing I did want to touch on was surfaces. We've seen a lot of there's been a lot of things published recently about how long this virus can survive on surfaces. And a lot of that is pre-peer review. So it has not been peer reviewed yet. It's been released under what's called like a bioarchive or a med archive. And these are preprint journals before peer review. So you're seeing these things being touted by like media about, oh, this virus can survive on X surface for 7 days. That's a really terrible misconception. And when you look at the data and the science behind that, I think that's a gross overestimation. What people are doing is that they're, having a deposit of the virus, and then they're measuring how long it stays, how long the RNA is there. How long the RNA is there has no bearing on how long the virus is infectious. Right? Just because the RNA is still there doesn't mean it can infect you. What they've been doing is that they've been using nucleotide-based assays, so like PCR and stuff like that, instead of what they should be using were plaque assays. So plaque assays are how you tell how many infectious viruses you have on a load that are still viable. And then you can determine like, okay, this virus needs X amount of virions in order to infect a person. So those studies take a longer period of time, and we don't have that data yet. So, people releasing like, oh, the RNA stays on the surface for like 7 days. Like, that doesn't mean anything. There was research from like 5 years ago about other corona-type viruses that are far more realistic, And because, we weren't in a pandemic and the people weren't trying to get stuff published as fast as possible. So the data is likely far more reliable because they used these plaque assays and they weren't under this time stress and crunch. So what you're seeing now and what the actual infectivity length of time is likely half. In a lot of cases, it's way shorter than what people are putting out now. And depending on the surface, like brass, copper, the thing dies very quickly. Every couple hours it has a half-life, so it decreases by half. Again, skin, 20 minutes. You have enzymes on your skin that break apart viruses. You have RNases on your hands that destroy RNA. And I think that's also one of the reasons this has been such a pain in the butt to study is because it's an RNA virus. RNA is very difficult to deal with instead of DNA. DNA is very strong. RNA sucks.
Yeah, I mean, and it also brings up the point of staying healthy. I mean, if you're staying healthy and your body is functioning the way that it's supposed to, it doesn't appear that this virus can do much to you. If you have a strong immunity, and even in terms of your mitochondria, isn't your mitochondria made up of RNA as well? Or am I way off on that?
Right. Well, it's made up of bacterial DNA. So it's actually circular bacterial DNA. So mitochondria used to be bacteria. So that's why they have their own separate DNA. So there's something that goes back. It's called endosymbiotic theory. Is when whatever we were at, millions of years ago before we evolved into whatever we are now. We were like, hey, that's super tight. That little bug makes energy. I'm gonna eat that, or I'm gonna try to get that a part of my cells. And they did. We were able to successfully do that and incorporate that organism's DNA into ours. But when you look at it, it has all the hallmarks of a bacteria. It has a double, has a cell membrane. It has, the internal circular bacterial DNA, which is the hallmark of bacterial DNA is circular, whereas we have it in chromosomes. So all these different hallmarks of this mitochondria it's a separate DNA. But I don't believe it's made of RNA. It may communicate in RNA as far as sending messages and things like that. But mitochondria are a fascinating little organism.
You're right.
And, you did mention something that I think a lot of people, because people are trying to take precautions. They're buying gloves, they're buying masks, they're having hand sanitizer in their cars. But you mentioned seeing something funny in a grocery store. Someone had a glove on and they were using their phone, and it defeats the purpose. So with that being said, what are the basic things that people probably aren't thinking about when they're trying to take these precautions with all of the different things that they have at home to try to keep themselves safe from this virus?
Yeah. So there's a lot of people staying inside. First of all, I don't think that's a great thing. Outside is much bigger, right? It's if you're inside with everyone else in your house, as long as everyone's, well, that's okay. But you're all breathing the same air. Go outside. Outside's much bigger land. But another thing is you can't sanitize dirty hands. So I see a lot of people, just put sanitizer on their hands. It's not going to be able to penetrate dirt and grime and things like that. You have to make sure your hands are clean in order for sanitizer to effectively work. And then there are making sure that you're using approved sanitizers for this specific virus, right? There's a lot of, now they have a big list out because there was nothing approved for this virus. And some of the common ones aren't technically approved. They may work, but they might not be exactly approved. But anything you're going to be doing to make sure that common touch surfaces are cleaned regularly is going to definitely help. So as far as wearing masks, reusing masks for a long period of time, not really great for you. Hospitals are under droplet protocol and not aerosol protocol. So droplet protocol is very different. Aerosol protocol requires N95s. Droplet protocols require just face coverings, right? But we've been overly cautious and very safe about using N95s, and that's because we didn't know, right? We don't know that if it's completely aerosol or if it's only droplet driven. It seems to be only droplet driven. That's what I've seen. That's all, the doctors I've communicated with, that's what they're operating under the guise of. If they have an N95 mask, great. But if they don't, it's not going to keep them from treating the patient, right? They're going to use a different kind of covering, something like that. And then, just you have to be cognizant about, again, touching your mucous membranes, and then transporting, keeping your nails nice and trim, because bacteria likes to hide under there. Well, bacteria and viruses. So, and then again, try to stay healthy. There's been there was some data on vitamin C, which wasn't very good. Some people had they tried to megadose vitamin C on some sick people and made them worse. So that's not to say you shouldn't eat a mandarin, an orange, or cutie, right? Because they're delicious and they have other things that are good for you. Just don't megadose, right? Don't think that megadosing vitamins is the cure to cancer, because I think people think that sometimes. But yeah, again, as long as you can keep your hand contact surfaces from introducing your mucous membranes, I think you're going to be all right. As long as you clean and sanitize, wash and sanitize your hands pretty regularly, you're going to be okay. And then give people professional personal space, right? Any space that you would grant people in a professional setting for someone that you're just meeting or having a meeting with, that type of personal space should be sufficient. As long as you're not, as long as you're not getting Joe Biden on it and sniffing people's hair, like, you're going to be far enough away that it's not going to be a problem. So, but again, to maintain that social distance. But for like here, for facilities, we've separated. We've reduced shifts so they can maintain the distance from people.
Sometimes women's hair smells really good, though. So
right, it's got to give it a sniff, a secret sniff.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, you got to be more subtle.
What can you do? Try not to do it on television. So, or at a podium. Like, what can you do? But yeah, those are the basics. Again, make sure you're washing your hands. Make sure, if you have hand sanitizer, great. But make sure you wash your hands. You wash your hands effectively. The soap. So in order to dissolve the, sorry, you're hearing my sheller. That production crew gets a little rowdy. So as long as your soap is effective, you got a good lather, it will break apart the capsid of the virus, and then you'll be left with raw RNA. Right? Raw RNA isn't infectious. Right? The RNA needs the virus capsule in order to help invade and infiltrate a cell, so it can hijack your cellular metabolism, your cellular functions. So soap can work. Make sure you're washing very well. Just take care of yourself.
Switching some gears here for a second. What are your thoughts on? I've been seeing like some different people post some different carnivore style like memes and stuff like that, where we'll say, that if you have kale, has this amount of vitamins in it, but then you can only absorb this amount. But from a cow or from a ruminant animal, it appears that you can absorb more. And I've been kind of saying this for a while, and so is Stan Efferding, that we choose to eat those kind of animals to get our vitamins and nutrients. Those animals are eating vegetables for us, in a sense. They're eating the greens for us. What are some of your thoughts on that?
I just go back and look at the body plan of a human, the digestive tract of a human being, and then the genetic repository we have. Do we have the genetics that enable us to break down plants? Do we have the genetic repository to break down, meat? And the answer is yes. We have the genetic repository to break down both, and we have the body plan that's built to predominantly break down meat with vegetables. So, and that was, when you think about evolutionarily, humans did not evolve in the, wonderful, amazing, I'm going to go to the grocery store and buy as much meat as I physically can, put it in my freezer and eat it every single day. That's not what happened. We survived. So I think we have there's always misconception that human evolution was driven based on performance, and has not been. Human evolution has been based on survival and how many kids you can have. So I would say the most optimal diet is the one that skyrockets your sperm count. Right. So check whatever diet, if you can track that and you can figure out whatever diet that is, that's probably the optimal diet. Right. Or that's what, humans have evolved for, not to say that's optimal for performance. But that's what fitness is. Fitness is about, procreation and moving the species along. It's not about who can run the fastest and who can, jump the highest. Whether, we use that as a tool to, to weed out people and select mates. But at the same time, it doesn't really have the exact bearing. So I think, our large intestine, small intestine, our microbiome, the way it is built, or the core microbiome at least, seems to be function to break down low-grade, easily digestible fibers. Not, it's not like a ruminant that's built to digest, very difficult to digest fibers. It's built to break down easy sugars. For instance, like croton, right? Like the whole leaf capsule. Mm-hmm. So that's like a dual effect, right? Because it's a smooth muscle relaxer. It's an it's in the opioid family, so it's a smooth muscle relaxer. So you're gonna poop less, but you're also introducing a ground up leaf, right? Like into your. So if you're like me and you try to do everything over the top and take as much as that as you can in a day, right? You're not going to have a great time. Your body can't break it down. So personally, I'm more of a fan of the tincture, stuff like that, the potion,
right?
More along my guidelines. It's especially like on a carnivore-based diet, if you're going to have the depletion of your microbiome, which is going to happen because you're not feeding them, so you're going to have less of them. So they're not going to be able to break down. They're going to be able to break down even less of the fiber. I would say carnivore, go with a potion in that case, because at that point you're all good. But I think the body plan for the humans is definitely, it's split. If we had was a stomach and a large intestine, there'd be no problem. They eat only meat, right? But I don't think that's the case. Right?
Yeah, I agree 100% with what you're saying. Even though I've been a huge proponent and huge fan of the carnivore diet, I mean, it's quite obvious that we were made to eat additional things other than just meat. But once you start going, once you start veering off of kind of like what's natural to us, what's here on this earth for us, that's not massively produced or altered or messed with, then I think that's when we probably start to maybe go down the wrong road. So fish, chicken, pork, cow, buffalo, elk, all that kind of stuff. And then, you follow it up with some fruit and vegetables and maybe some potatoes and some rice and stuff like that. And pretty much good to go.
Right. And again, in like potatoes, for instance, we weren't built to eat potatoes. It took years of domestication and changing potatoes so they wouldn't kill us. Right. So most of the vegetables we see today, like broccoli, broccoli, cauliflower, mustard, it's all the same damn plant. It's just been changed by humans time and time again. Right. So if you're telling me that humans evolved to eat mustard seed, I doubt it. You know what I mean? But can we? Sure. Like, why not? There's a lot of great things in broccoli, like sulforaphane and things like that. But, whether or not the human body was built to eat broccoli, I don't think so, because broccoli is broccoli was engineered by humans through breeding. So
could you say the same thing about cows?
Sure. Maybe not.
The cows they're older though, right? They've been around longer, right?
Right. And that's the difference about, breeds, it's like dogs, right? If a wolf looked like Daisy, she'd be eaten or dead. I don't know. That's not a great body plan for a hunter, unless they're hunting like mice and stuff, which she might be a good tunnel rat. So, But yeah, definitely. We've domesticated cows to suit our needs, to fit our basis. But at the same time, if you're, again, the genetic body plan for a cow is very similar to what it was. So if you can feed the animal what it's, evolved to eat over time, and you can, that end result should be very similar, right? So if you feed grass-fed cattle, free-range cattle, that end result to a cow 1,000 years ago, probably going to be the same. So,
you mentioned pork actually, and a lot of people are scared of the way pork is like. There's some fear behind the way it's processed and put on shelves, and like undercooking pork in some cases.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because honestly, I don't know. From all the ways you've talked about storing meat, I know I've broken those rules this past week.
Yeah.
I've done this so many times. So I think my stomach is I don't know, it can handle things. But yeah, can you talk to us about pork a little bit, please?
Sure. I think one of the main shames is that people are so afraid to, they're afraid of undercooking pork. I think that you could, spare a couple of degrees on pork. And the main concern for that was trichinosis. From a parasite trichinella, which was very common in pork. And so if you undercook that, then you could, get trichinosis. That was for mostly, that was before we have the domestication of pigs now, and then pig raising being in biosecure facilities. If you've ever been to a pig farm, that's what it is. It is a biosecure facility. You may not enter a pig pen without having been decontaminated and checked in and registered. There is a huge surge to try to protect the pork supply, and a lot of the other concern is that porks are very similar to humans, and they can succumb to a lot of different illnesses. It's not like you don't see a cow get sick, right? A cow doesn't get a virus and stuff like that. Cows are pretty robust. They might have some issues with rumination, pH, things like that, larger scale issues. They might get infections in their skin or their hooves and things like that. But cows don't really get very sick. Pork gets sick. Pigs tend to get viruses. They tend to get, parasites. They're down on the ground. They're pretty much scavengers. So as long as you're controlling their environment, here in the U.S., the pork supply is extremely safe. It's very robust, biosecure. I don't think there's any issue with the pork supply here. So I'm getting my knocked on to have my meetings here. So I might have to let you guys go here in a few minutes. But,
you better get your ass back to work there, buddy.
I know it. So
it was great having you on the show. Where can people find you?
You can find me. So I'm on Instagram, White Coat Blue Collar. Or if you're interested and have any questions, just shoot me an email at strongmanbrooke@gmail.com. That's mostly it. I try to stay under the radar so people don't find me. But if you have questions, feel free to shoot me an email or something like that.
Real quick, can you tell us what the hell Spam is made out of and why it's so delicious?
I don't know. They made that 100 years ago, and I think they're just shipping it. So I don't think anyone knows the original recipe. I think everything you get now is still made from 100 years ago, but it's still good. So that's why it's so hard to find now. Such a hot commodity in Hawaii. I have no idea what's in Spam.
Awesome. Nobody seems to know. Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay. That's part of its allure.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's a delicacy these days,
Yeah, got some protein. That's all you need to know. All right, Charles. Thanks a lot, man. Have a good rest of your day.
Right on, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot,
man. Day.
You too.
You too.
Shit, that was great.
Yes, it was.
Man, professional smart guy. That's amazing.
He hit up a lot of good points, I thought.
Real talk, I think, and potentially you guys may have too. I'm pretty sure I've built up some type of a gut immunity because I have eaten so much bad beef, man. I just cook it and I eat it, and I don't know. I think my stomach's used to bad beef.
Yeah, you guys definitely have a much stronger stomach than I do. But even with that said, I've developed a lot stronger gut whatever you want to call it as well. Because I just know, like, in the past, like, even like lately since we've been home, I've been able to cook eggs, you know, and before I had to have them scrambled or else, you know, it kind of get a little jacked up. And then I could do like over medium, and then I could do over easy. And now I'm doing sunny side up, like, you know, as runny eggs as, you know, yeah. And it's not like, I'm not like, I normally have really terrible gas, and like, it just smells like hard boiled eggs are shooting out of my butt. You know, it was bad. Now, not so much. So, you know, things are getting better. And I could just see your face the whole time when he was talking about food poisoning and, you know, all this nastiness. You're just, because I could see like some of the scenarios going through your head, like, oh my God, I dropped that on the floor and then I just licked my fingers and ate it.
Bruh, the amount of times that I do stuff like, the amount of like I'll take a pork belly out of the fryer, and then, you know, some of it will drop on the ground, but caught it, 5 seconds, we're good, eat it.
I think everyone's having the realization now with just washing your hands, because I know, like, just handling some of the like the food that I prepare here at home, it's kind of like that, where I would like you know, salt one side of the steak, flip it over, salt the other side. I remember just like either wiping my hands with like a napkin, or just like running them under like the water for 2 seconds and then drying off and being like, all right, what else do we got, you know, and then putting my hands in other things. And now I stop everything and I'm like, nah, let's happy birthday to, you know, do it for 20 seconds.
I've always been a little grimy. I think, you know, that I always have been a proponent of, like, you know, sucking all the germs that you can and let your body get used to it. But I am washing my hands more, but I mean, I used to just not wash them at all. You know, and some people might find that to be gross, but I have some practices that I think people would think are disgusting anyway, just like the way I cook and stuff. I'm not going to I will wash my hands before I cook something. That's pretty, you know, normal, but even like using like bacon grease or using fat that was previously in the pan and like stuff like that. I don't have any, I don't even know if that's like, if it's not good, but like I've been doing it for years, and it it doesn't seem to bother me. I mean, maybe
that's how the food tastes good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, and, you know, you get your cast iron pan all like gnarly and stuff like that. And it's good to have it kind of build some gunk up on there. Or even like my wife wipes down our skillet thing that we have. And I'm always like, oh man, I had that perfect. Now I got to like start over, you know? And she's always spraying down the counter with like some sort of anti whatever. And I've never liked that stuff. Even like she has like, you know, smelly stuff everywhere in the house, you know, that are plugged into the fucking wall. I unplug them all the time. I unplug them and I put them somewhere else. And she's like, God damn it, you unplug this thing again? I'm like, I can't deal with that smell of that stuff. She's like, it smells pretty. It smells good. I'm like, no, it makes me crazy.
Yeah, I can't walk anywhere near like a Bath and Body Works or something like that. Like that smell is just way too overbearing. But in regards to like using like bacon grease and stuff, my father-in-law puts some of the bacon grease in with refried beans.
Yeah,
it is insane. It is so good. Yeah,
he's just a genius. That's all. He's
really good at cooking.
He's next level.
Let me ask you guys if you did this as a teenager, because I just remembered I don't do this anymore as an adult. But so after, you know, you go take a dump, wipe, I'd just be like, good, run out. Just run out the bathroom. Quick thumb test. No smell. Run out.
Yeah, how much poop could possibly be on there? No one's shaking Nsima's hand anytime soon. Right?
I don't do that anymore.
That's great.
I was a teenager. I was young.
That's terrible.
I think we all do gross stuff though. Like you sniff something and then you just put it on. You're like, oh, this is probably good.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Or like eating, like we were talking about eating meat that's like old. Like how many times did you start eating something? You're like, okay, that definitely is a little bit off. And then you sniff it and it's still kind of off. And you're like, this is off. And you keep eating it and you're like, fuck it.
Too deep.
You just go through with it because you're like, I don't want to waste this. Like, what am I going to do? Throw this out?
Yeah, I do that with ground beef, because like I'll cook like a big old amount so that way I can have like meals for the rest of the week or a couple days, and then towards the end I'm just like man, it's right on the like, okay, I'm gonna eat it this last time and then that's it. But then you look at the tray, like see what's left, and just thinking, man, I don't want to waste that. I will say though that when it comes to steaks, if I can smell it a mile away, I will not touch it. Yeah. And it sucks too because I seem to have like a pretty heightened sense for that. So when Stephanie is eating something, I can be like, don't touch that. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that's spoiled. Like, how do you know?
Steak sense is tingling.
I'm like, I can smell it from over here. And, by then it's already too late. She's halfway through.
I remember going to a restaurant, like one of my most hated things is to send something back, like I don't know. Like you should get what you pay, you should get what you want, so there's a lot of times where I've ordered steak and gotten chicken and just kept my mouth shut and just ate it because I'm just like, I don't want to bother anybody, but I've gotten steak before where it's like, it's kind of clear that it's on its way out, it's like this one's not intentionally aged, this one is just like past its due date by a few days, and they were like, just cook it a little extra and this guy will be fine, or throw some olive oil on there and he won't notice. And I remember at one restaurant in particular, I was like, there's just something doesn't taste right with this. And the lady was like, well, you ordered it medium rare, right? And I was like, yeah, no, I was like, the temperature, like the way it's cooked, it looks fine, but the meat just, and I was trying to just like not say that the meat's old. I'm just like, it just doesn't taste right. It's not appetizing. She's like, well, did you order the right cut or something? Did you order the wrong thing? It's like all over me. And I was like, no, I was like, it's the New York strip. That's the one I ordered, and I was like, can I just get something different? And she's like, you know what? She's like, in the kitchen, sometimes they screw things up. She's like, I bet you someone, and I'm like, why, why are we blaming? Like, I'm not happy with what you put in front of me. I would like to try to get something else. So can we just figure that out? And then also, if you're blaming the kitchen, like, I don't want to come here anymore. But first of all, you're blaming me. I really don't want to come here. But if you're going to be blaming the kitchen, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I remember that spot. That's where they mess up all the time. Because that's what the waitress told me last time, and you're just like, can you just say, oh my God, I'm sorry that you don't enjoy that. What can we do to help? Now leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
God damn, lady.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Yeah. But I think my like heightened sense for like finding or sensing spoiled meat goes back to a time at a restaurant when I was a kid, and I had ordered some ribs, or maybe they're little riblets. And within my first bite, I'm like, nope, these are bad. And then my dad's like, of course, this will tell you a lot about who my dad is. He's like, quit complaining, just eat it. I'm like, no, Dad, like, this is gross. Like, I need to send them back. And he's like, you're not sending those back. You're going to eat it. I'm like, I'm not going to, like. And then my mom, she smells the plate. She's like, ooh, yeah, those are not good. And my dad's like, fine, take mine. And I don't remember what he had, but he gave me his plate and he's like, I'll eat him. Dude, he was so sick the next day, but he was not willing to admit that like I was right and he was wrong. He's like, yeah, those are probably the worst ribs I've ever had. They were so spoiled. I'm like, why didn't you just say something in return? He's like, I'm not going to send them back. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude.
So let me ask you guys this, Mark and Andrew. For individuals that, they're eating a steak and they don't really know what to taste for. Because honestly, I don't know if I could know if my steak is old. I think I'd just end up eating the whole thing, to be perfectly honest, and be like, that was kind of interesting, but different. What do you look for on the palate? Like, what is the key?
I think I could smell it and tell you right away, but if I were to
after it's cooked or when it's raw? After
it's cooked, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure if I tried, I could figure it out beforehand. This will sound weird because I've never taken a bite of moldy, like a moldy 2x4. But it kind of reminds me of that, like almost like a little bit of like green.
I think mold is a good word for it. It kind of tastes the way that some things that have gone foul smell. but not brutally bad, like not like where you're like, oh my God, I'm going to barf all over the place. It's just a small tinge. I forget what the taste is that they call that. It's not a Mary or something, or I forget what it's called, but there's like 6 taste buds, or I mean, I could be fucking all this up. I don't remember, but you got like salt and sweet. There you go. That word.
Oh, okay.
So you have like salt and you got sweet and you have that flavor profile as well. And that's like aged stuff. That's blue cheese, right? So blue cheese is a perfect example of that. Like if there's any resemblance of, and blue cheese stinks, right? You get it out of the package and it fucking reeks. So if there's anything like that going on, that would kind of be your red flag right there.
Yeah, it usually follows the taste of like everything. So you take a bite of a steak, you get saltiness, you get like a little bit of meat, and then there's just something behind it where you're like, like that kind of hit me like when somebody like takes your air out of your stomach, you're like, ugh, like what was that? And you're like, nope, that's not normal.
Has a little wang to it.
Yes, wang is perfect. Because there are times where it's like kind of like what I was saying, how it's like has like that moldy like just old bark even smell to it, and then there's other times where it's like, whoa, that was a little sour, like a little twang, like Brooke just said.
Yeah, I'm about to go cook 2 packets of ground beef right now.
Oh, and Nsima, I know a little bit of what it's like too, because I remember you mentioning this before, and this has happened to me as well. You had like a bad nitro one time, right? A bad nitro cold brew.
Yeah.
It was like real sour or something. And you took a sip and you were like, that doesn't taste right. And you take another one and you're like, no, this is not right. And it's like costs you $5. So you take another sip, but you're just like, damn, something's just off. And that's kind of the only way to describe it. It's like whatever normal properties it has, it's like just off for whatever reason.
I love that we all can taste it, but we're like, let me try again. And you're like, no, it's definitely.
Well, what about when you invite someone else into it? You're like, hey man, I'm like, there's something wrong with this. You got to smell this thing. Like, and someone else comes over and smells it and it stinks. And then you got to invite someone else over to smell it, and you got to invite someone else over to eat it. It's like, why do we need this big like consensus,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At one of the restaurants that we went to when we were in LA, it like, I didn't know. So like we got like one of those, like whatever, how many day aged steaks, and towards the middle it was getting a little funky, and I just remember like, fuck, like man, I really, because it was like a tomahawk or something, and it was really good on the outside, but then towards the middle for some reason it started getting really funky, and I'm just like starting to get a little nauseous because like the wind was coming through, and then like it would like waft the air, and like I said, I'm just like hypersensitive to that, and I was like, oof, like get this thing away from me, this is not good.
Oh man,
it's real bad.
Real quick, switching gears. I just took a run the other day and my calves are dead. And this was I don't know if I just told you. No, I didn't tell you guys. I told Andrew this morning. It was a 2.5 mile run walk. And me and my girl, we were taking it easy, dude. It's not like we were going that hard. We were taking it easy. The next day and today, my calves are on fire. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's just, not used to certain things, right? And that's why I've been trying to have a little bit longer progression. I'm sure I can make a lot faster progression with some of my what I'm doing, but just really taking my time with it. I did some stairs today, and shit, man, that felt really good. Threw on the weight vests again, and basically just stairs, things like lunges. Anytime I'm able to get just a small break in action, then I'm able to do pretty good. But when it's cyclical is when I do really, really poorly, just because I'm not that good at that yet. And so something like hitting the stairs up was perfect because you're putting a lot of energy into one step at a time, And then the way that these stairs are, they're short, choppy steps. So I was taking like 2 at a time. And then as we got to the ones that are longer stretched, I kind of ran those a little bit. And by the time I walk back down, I'm recovered every time, and it feels great. It feels perfect. But like I'm saying with running, man, running is brutal. But, I'm starting to like run these hills a little bit more, and that's starting to feel a little bit better. And it's fun. Like it's an amazing feeling when you start getting better at something. And that's kind of, I mean, I'm enjoying it. I'm going to run twice today. I ran earlier and I'm going to run again just because I'm having fun with it. And I do need to hit up the weights, but I figured it hasn't even really been that long since I've done anything with weights. It's not nearly as long as I think. Like in my head, it's been 3 months, but it's only been probably like 6 days or something.
Yeah. Is the beach over there? Is it still open, or did they close it down?
The beach is closed. Some of the trails and stuff are closed. There's actually a girl she's been running. So there's the golf course is like right here. And this golf course has like these like little hills, and then it's flat, and then it has hills and it's flat, but you're not allowed to go on this golf course at all unless you're golfing. And you can't even, like, people get pissed. You can't even like cut through, or they don't want you on the golf course at all for multiple reasons. I mean, they don't want you to get hit with a golf ball, for one. But also they just don't want, especially people that are renting here. They don't want them haphazardly running across the golf course and stuff like that. But there's obviously no golf going on right now. So this girl goes out there and runs every day, and she gets yelled at every day by all these old people.
You're like an older person, or
there's some older people out here.
Yeah.
That are like trying to make her stop or whatever. And so I saw her walking earlier today, and I was like, hey, I said, were you getting in trouble by those older people? And she was like, yeah. She's like, they don't want me running on the golf course. She said they said that I'm tearing up the golf course. I'm like, are you wearing like football cleats or something? And I said, the funny thing is, I bet you that none of those people even golf. They have nothing better to do. They're just like cooped up in their house, and they're like, who's this young person out there running?
Get off my lawn, kid.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Hey, you guys know what's cool though? Who's that guest that we have coming on soon? The guy that's the swimmer. And he like broke some record, and he's super jacked still. It's the British guy.
Oh, yeah.
Edgley.
Yep.
Oh,
Ross Edgley?
Mm-hmm.
Ross Edgley,
Yo.
Yep.
Okay, so I think it's dope. First off, that number one, you're taking up running right now, and you're maintaining good size. And then there's guys.
Jacked.
He's super
fucking jacked.
His shoulders and his arms, like everything's still all bubbly. It doesn't make any sense. But the really dope thing is that I think a lot of lifters are scared of doing these types of activities because they're going to lose their gains in their muscle. But we got all these examples of like just athletes that are doing these cardio components, and they're still pretty damn strong, and they're still really jacked. Like, you can do this stuff, get healthier, and still keep your muscle. It's not going to waste away.
You know what I compare it to a little bit is when women say, I don't want to get too big, right? When women say, I don't want to get too big, because it's like, hey, you could work really hard, and it's going to be very difficult for you to get big. And I think the same is true with conditioning. It's like, if you're listening to this right now and you're a 275-pound power lifter, it'll be hard for you to do conditioning work that's hard enough that would like really negatively impact your muscle mass. And I don't advise that anyway. Like, you should do stuff that's like, if you're just not used to having your heart rate and heart rate monitors a good idea, especially if you just never done this kind of stuff before. But if you're not used to having your heart rate above 135 and more in like the 145 range for minutes at a time, then you need to take your time getting used to it. And if you take your time getting used to it, you're not going to lose muscle mass. But if you were just all of a sudden out of nowhere be like, hey, I want to start running 10 miles a day, I think naturally your body would start to, you would just want to weigh less. It would just make more sense for you to figure out a way to eat a little bit less. But it doesn't even really mean that you have to lose muscle mass. I mean, I don't think anyone is going to, automatically switch over to doing something so drastic. So I like what you said there, because that is the truth of it. It's like, if you're throwing in a modest amount of extra activity, and you're trying we should all be training our heart. It's just, I did it throughout my powerlifting career. I always would drag the sled. I'd always do something like that. It's just something I got away from for a while, and I just wanted to kind of get back into it. And it's not like my heart wasn't training when I was doing some cardio training for bodybuilding, and it's not like it wasn't being trained when I'm lifting. It's just that this is specific. It's just you guys know what I'm talking about. This is a way different thing when you are training with specific intentions. But yeah, losing muscle mass, I don't think anyone has anything to really worry about that, unless you're a thinner athlete and you have if you have that base as a endurance athlete, then it might be in your best interest to try to do more time stuff, try to do stuff that's more sprinting friendly, more explosive stuff rather than the longer duration stuff, because you're already used to the longer duration stuff. You're probably pretty efficient at it. And, if you want to try to hold on to some of that muscle mass, and I just advise everybody to do a run walk, because I think that's the simplest thing. Run and walk and just prescribe it for yourself. Just say, I'm going to run. If you really suck at running, say, I'm going to run for 15 seconds. And then I'm going to walk for a minute. And then I'm going to run for 15. Repeat. If you can do that 20 times on a run walk, that's fantastic. You don't have to go fast. You don't have to be in a hurry. Just do as shitty as you need to do it. Just get it done and try to do a little bit better the next time.
Yeah, we were doing like run the block, walk across the street, run the block, walk across the street, and it was chill. Like, we were sore, but it was nice.
Did she try to take you out at all, like at the knees or anything? She tried to kick you or anything?
No, she didn't. But I had her keep pace, so I had her maintaining the pace that she was able to maintain, and I was acting like, oh, this is easy, but in the back of my head, I was suffering too. I kept my mouth closed, but that was about it. I was still suffering.
Did you start to, was it accumulative? Did you start to feel it a little bit more as you went?
Yeah, when we would go on longer durations of running, then I'd start to feel like my right knee a little bit. But I think it's just because it hasn't been used like that in a while. I'm pretty sure that after I do this for about another week, because we're going to probably do it 2 times this week, I'll feel much better. But
I would say treat it like a squat too, play around with different foot positions. I've noticed I've made some mistakes in my lifting where I've tried to overcorrect something and it's not to my body's anatomy that well. And then I end up with, shit gets inflamed. So an example would be doing a tricep push down, or doing an elbow or tricep extension with some dumbbells or something, where you try to really force the elbows in a lot, because that's the technique for the tricep extension. But you force the elbow in so much that if you don't have the shoulder mobility to do that, then you're putting undue stress on the elbow. And then same thing with your running. If you're trying to adhere to some sort of idea of what you think would be better form, you're trying to have your foot go completely straight forward, or you're trying to bring your knees up, anything that feels a little too unnatural, I would ease off of and just try to let your legs just go, let them go wherever they want. And then you can work on efficiency, as you do it for a longer period of time. Because I think the number one thing that kills people with running is, there's people running all different kinds of ways, right? But have you ever seen somebody that runs in your neighborhood frequently? You're like, the fuck is that? You're like, what are they doing? It looks like they got shot, with a BB gun in the hamstring on one side, because they're kind of inching along, kind of weird. So you want to make sure that you're not developing, repetitive motion that's unhealthy, but at the same time, you can't force something that's not there. So you got to take your time with it.
Yeah, I'm going to probably watch more running form videos, because one thing that I do now that I didn't used to do in the past, and I'm saying this because I think when I was playing soccer, when we would go on long runs, this was a bad habit that I didn't even realize, was the heel to toe. I would heel to toe strike on every single step. And as I've been looking into actual what runners say in terms of the way you should run, first off, whenever I sprinted, I never sprinted heel to toe. It was always on the balls of my foot, right? But when I would run at slower paces, it'd be heel toe. And that's apparently really bad for you. So at least the one thing that I was making sure that I was doing when we were running was keeping on that padding on the ball of your foot. I was running on that and not letting my heel touch the ground. And that, oddly enough, that felt great. My knee isn't sore or anything. But when I would go for longer distances as we were running, there would be a little bit of soreness in the knee that I'd be like, let's slow down now, or let's start walking. So,
Andrew, how's your neck?
Neck is progressing pretty well. You guys know, I crack it myself, and I haven't been able to even get close because it was so stiff.
It's all stuck.
Yeah, but yesterday I was able to kind of get a couple of cracks on both sides. So it's better. I've just been doing stuff on the treadmill, oddly enough, run walks on there on accident. What I do is I select a, it has different categories, like run walk. There is one that says run walk. Oh. There's one that's running. There's this. And I like doing the hikes because it's at usually a steady state at an incline. And then I had a podcast on, so I wasn't listening to the trainer. And so as we're going, like, it just goes boop, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, I got to keep up. Like, this is crazy. And like, so it would slow down, and then it would take off again. And I'm like, bitch, come on. Like, and so, Stephanie's like, hey, I'm like, no, I don't mean it like that. Like, I know it's a female trainer, but that's not at all what I'm saying. I'm like more talking to myself because I'm upset that I got to run again. So I've been doing that, and it's been going really well. And I noticed that, I think, Mark, you were saying this, you're good walking and then you're good taking off, but kind of in the middle, it's a little bit of a struggle. So when I'm walking at an incline at a pretty good pace, I'm dying. And then the incline will go down a little bit, but the speed will go up a lot. And I'm able to almost take a break while jogging. And I don't know if that's because I'm cheating the treadmill, like kind of just like jumping and letting the treadmill go on its own, or if I just feel a little bit more comfortable in that range. But whatever the case, it's been feeling pretty good. Like, I get off and I'm just drenched in sweat, which is pretty rare for me because I don't really sweat too much. But I'm in a hoodie, so when I get off, I feel very like fulfilled, and I feel I like the when you leave the gym, how good you feel. I feel like that coming off of the treadmill, so I'm really grateful for that.
I think that's massively important to get sweaty, for body composition. If you look at The Rock is a good example. I mean, that dude is wringing out his shirt every single day. If you don't have some sort of component to your training that is keeping your heart rate elevated enough to where you're expending enough energy to the point where you're getting pretty sweaty. Like, I used to joke about it when I was doing my bodybuilding show. I said, like, I knew I was doing good when I got sweaty shins. When my shins started to get sweaty, I knew I was in business. And there's not a lot of other activities you could do cardio wise, other than doing a treadmill at a pretty good incline, or, there's a lot of different exercises you can do, but what's hard is sometimes making yourself do it repetitively for a long enough period of time that you get sweaty like that. But again, I really think I think that's hugely important that you work that hard. I think that's when you start really tapping into, you're just trying, if you make your aerobic system better, you're going to be healthier overall. We all know the benefits of lifting, and we're not going anywhere with our lifting, but we're always going to be doing that. But when it comes to that aerobic capacity, you can think about it this way: you build that aerobic base, and it can just give you a lot of access to a lot of other things, especially when you've already built up some strength.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And like I said, I feel, I don't know, it's apples and oranges, but I feel as good, mentally when I get off the treadmill after sweating a bunch as I would a really good lifting session. Yeah. And right now during this whole lockdown thing, it's something I definitely need. I've noticed that my creativity is kind of taking not a backseat, but it's taking a hit by staying indoors a lot. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I think maybe that's what's happening, but getting on the treadmill and then throwing on the podcast has definitely helped.
Trying to go for a walk would be a good idea. We just had that podcast that popped up, walking in nature. I think that's, an excellent thing. I remember you saying before, Andrew, that your neighborhood is it's just like pavement, and it's not the greatest spot to walk. So maybe you guys could drive somewhere where you're still practicing some social distancing and get out and get a good walk. What I've learned with stuff like that is, for my family, it's yes, we could walk outside sometimes and go for a walk, especially here. Obviously here is ideal for that, but where we live in Dixon isn't ideal. But I've learned that if I'm hey, let's go, we'll go to downtown Davis and we'll go for a walk. I mean, even still, even with the lockdown and stuff, we'd still do stuff like that. And going to my old house and walking on that trail, so trying to find stuff. It's the kids aren't into it. If you're hey, let's go outside and go for a walk, they won't do it, but if I'm hey, let's drive over here and go this way, it gives them a little extra little extra motivation to do it.
Yeah. And I know we don't want to promote not social distancing and not, doing what you feel is helping. But I mean, if I can for a second talk to my introverts out there, it's something that I actually noticed in myself, because I was joking around saying like, oh, like this lockdown is an introvert's holiday. Like this is great. Like I get to do more of what I've been wanting to do anyways. However, we did go out on Easter, and I remember feeling like a little like, man, my stomach's like a little upset right now. Like what's going on? And I think it was because the anxiety that I like have been fighting against is kind of come roaring back. So if you could imagine, let's take an addict of any kind or whatever. We'll just say a drug addict. And all of a sudden the government's like, hey, to save the country, you guys need to do all the drugs right now. So it's like, oh shit, here we go. However, if you're a recovered addict, and then all of a sudden you now are taking in the stuff that got you, to this dark place, now to try to get out of it is going to be another thing. So if anybody is listening and you kind of have been enjoying being, locked down and cooped up, I highly recommend just getting outside, even if it is for a 10-minute walk, because I noticed for myself that it is actually doing something to me. And I don't know if it's because I'm just more in tune with everything with myself because of like my health getting a little bit better now. But man, if you can, whatever it may be, like get outside, even if it's just for a little bit, because I noticed like when I went outside, I'm like, oh my God, the outside world, like this is scary. Don't know if I'm being a weenie about it, but I just know that it's doing something to me.
Well, let's say that, that you were going to do, you're like, hey, I just feel like doing like a small workout. I'm going to do 10 push-ups, 10 jumping jacks, and 10 squats. And I'm going to repeat that for a couple of rounds for 10 minutes. Fucking do it outside. Go outside. You're going to call somebody, got a phone call to make, just get, figure out a way to get yourself outside, get that sunlight. It's going to make a huge difference. And any way that you can challenge yourself, I think can really help with creativity. I mean, a weird thing for some people, just because like people probably don't practice it enough, is just to sit down and write. Just sit down and write. I did a bunch of stuff yesterday where I just was talking into my voice recorder thing. It was just like thoughts. It was nothing. It's not anything I'm going to share with anybody or anything. It was just like, I said the date and I said where I'm at, and I said like, I talked about the exercises I'm doing. I talked about a couple other things, but it was just kind of some randomness. But if you sit down and maybe even write, I just sat down and just like wrote out a tentative schedule for myself the other day. I was like, hey, let's try to do A, B, and C before noon every day. Because I wasn't doing my exercise in the morning and I was doing it later in the day, which was fine. I was still getting it done and still working out really hard. But I was like, well, if I get some exercise in early in the day, then I might be able to get 2 days in. So, why not see if I can aim for that? So just like little things. And I put in 100 squats, 100 push-ups, the 10-minute walks, the 10-minute squat, which by the way, I did 10-minute squat today on a hill, which worked really good. Because remember I was telling you guys, my heels don't want to stay down on the ground. So I was on like a slight slant, and that worked really good.
Wait, were you facing down on the slant? Like you were facing down on the slant or up on the slant?
Definitely.
Yes, down. Yep.
Down on the slant. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a weird thing that works pretty well.
It worked good. I love your Fresh Prince of Bel-Air hat, by the way.
It's Rugrats, man. But yeah, it is a 90s Fresh Prince theme. So yeah. Did you ever watch Rugrats? You did, Andrew.
No.
I have.
I never did. No.
No, but Andrew, I think you touched on something that's super important. Like, I feel like this quarantine is definitely, if there's something that you were, you were able to bring yourself above before this all happened, and you're able to beat, this is the time that thing is going to rear its ugly head, and you got to be mindful of that, and you got to fight it off even harder than you did in the past. So,
yeah, absolutely, true. Yeah.
I saw a trippy ass movie last night. I don't recall the name of it. I'm so bad with this, but it basically, the guy doesn't know who he is, and the title of the movie is something along those lines, like Who Am I, or Who Am I Really, or something like that. It's a Netflix documentary, and it's about It's about twin brothers, and I would like you guys to see it, so I'm not going to say too much about it, but it's not the best movie I've seen or anything like that, but the story is remarkable. It really is. It has a lot to do with like memory and stuff like that. So I think you guys will dig it. I'll try to find the exact name of it, so that way I can get you the right information on what to search. But anyway, it's a Netflix documentary. It's about two twins. I think you guys would dig the story.
That sounds cool already.
It's hard though. It's a hard watch. After I sat there for a couple of minutes afterwards, just
like emotionally.
Fuck. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah. It's tough. It's a tough one. It's pretty brutal, but it's good though. It's really good. All right, Andrew, take us out of here. We need to do a perfect keto read, right? I don't think we got to that.
We didn't get to it, but I think this is better suited for Piedmontese since we talked about all this meat.
Oh yeah, we did talk a lot about meat.
Yeah. So we're switching things up.
I got right back to my meat, by the way. I ate a bunch of Italian food. I smashed a bunch of Italian food. I had one of our guests comment on a thing that I posted where I was like, "Oh, I'm done with my 100 days. What do you guys want to see me eat?" And so, what's his name? Supli. Goddamn, I'm losing his first name. Ethan. Yeah, there we go. Ethan suggested he had something very specific, like only a true former fat guy would have. But anyway, I went out and got some Italian food, got some garlic bread and some chicken parm and a bunch of just ridiculously amazing stuff. Fried ravioli, gnocchi. Good. Like, oh my God, all the stuff was just, it was worth it. It was really, you get something sometimes on a cheat meal and you're just like, man, that sucked. That wasn't that good. This was good. This was legit.
Yeah, I had to turn off the video because it was hurting my insides because I just wanted to eat. Yeah, it looked really good.
But anyway, I went right back to it. Next morning, cooked up a Piedmontese New York strip. And back on that plan, back on that meat-based diet. And as always, the Piedmontese stuff cooks up quick. And we don't know how they do it, but they make their steaks somehow leaner than everybody else's steaks. I'm confused by that, but they figured out a way. And then the steaks are still super tender. And it's been amazing, during this, kind of lockdown period to have access. So I'm super grateful for them and really appreciative of their product. But I think other people need to try it out too.
Yeah, I'm still hoping that they can make my dream come true with a 3-foot by 3-foot flat iron steak. That'd be that's definitely
just a big old square.
Yeah, just a big old. And the other thing too is they deliver straight to your door. You don't have to go outside and deal with the lines, the social distancing. Just kind of place your order and then boop, there it goes. Shows up 2 days later. And that, of course, is at Piedmontese.com. That's PIEDMONTESE.com. At checkout, enter promo code PowerProject for 25% off your order. And if your order is $99 or more, you get free 2-day shipping. Ooh, stumbled. But anyway, yeah, check out the Jacked and Tan box and the Power Project Deluxe bundle. Get a tomahawk in that bad boy. Yeah, that's what I plan on having.
It was 2 days ago, but my girlfriend decided to finally just have one of them because she doesn't eat my steaks usually. So I let her have one. And
big mistake.
No, first off, she liked it, but she was like, this steak doesn't feel like it's wasting anything. Like it just tastes like healthy for some reason. And it's probably because of the lack of fat, but she's like, it just went down so much easier than other steaks I've had. And I personally, I've never really, I don't know. I can kind of understand what she was saying there, but I can't wrap my head around it.
And Nsima, I'm very disappointed in you because I think that you're slipping, man.
In what way? Tell me.
I don't think you should be sharing things that are that good with her. You know what I mean?
Trust me, it's not going to happen again if I can say anything about it.
Next time she does that, you need to tackle her ass.
Just give her a quick, smackaroo. It's no big deal.
Yep. Again.
Yeah.
Oh God!
Poor girl. He's falling apart.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you guys for checking out this episode. For links for Piedmontese and or Perfect Keto, make sure you guys check the iTunes show notes or YouTube description. Please make sure you're following the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project, at MB Power Project on TikTok and Twitter. My Instagram is at I am Andrew Z. I'm trying to dig back into all the DMs that I've received. I guess you can now respond to people on a desktop, so hopefully I can get back to doing that a little bit quicker. Nsima, where you be?
At Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, at Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Mark?
At Mark Smelly Bell. Strength is never weakness, weakness never strength. Catch y'all later.